On Thursday, federal and state officials in Michigan charged 13 people accused of separate plots to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. 6 suspects were arrested Wednesday. They face federal charges of conspiracy to commit kidnapping. They are accused of plotting to kidnap Whitmer at her vacation home and place her on trial for treason before the November election. Thursday, the governor thanked law enforcement.
As a mom with 2 teenage daughters and 3 stepsons, my husband and I are eternally grateful to everyone who put themselves in harm's way to keep our family safe.
The U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan, Andrew Burge, said the accused men used operational security measures to avoid detection.
Thank you, Attorney General Nessel. All of us standing here today want the public to know that federal and state law enforcement are committed to working together to make sure violent extremists never succeed with their plans, particularly when they target our duly elected leaders.
Jonathan Oosting joins me now. He's a Michigan political reporter covering the Capitol for Bridge, Michigan. Jonathan, thanks very much for being with us. So what do we know about the suspects and what authorities say motivated their plot?
Well, there's actually 2 batches of suspects here. There's 6 men accused in the main kidnapping plot against Governor Whitmer. And those men, some of them are members of an unnamed militia group. The FBI did not name that group, but said it is a Michigan-based militia. And others of them seem to have just fallen in with this group. There's a business owner from Grand Rapids, Michigan, on the west side of the state, for instance, that appears to have played a key role in helping organize the plot. As far as motive, the affidavit and information released by the FBI today doesn't spell that out clearly, but it does include snippets of conversations secretly recorded by undercover and FBI informants that show these men obviously complaining about the governor, and specifically some of seeming to anyways complain about the restrictions she put in place to fight COVID-19. In one of these conversations, one of the ringleaders describes, the uncontrolled power that he thinks the governor had at the time. And this was, of course, in the middle of the pandemic, as the governor was issuing fairly aggressive orders to combat that.
So do we know the timeline with respect to the investigation? I mean, when did this investigation start?
Well, we know it started earlier this year, and it wasn't based on a specific threat, but rather a general series of controversial statements on social media. That prompted the FBI to start looking into this. And again, we don't know the details, but it looks like they managed to get informants within this ring, as well as some undercover agents, perhaps involved in some of these conversations, to learn about the group. And that's how they figured out more specifically the plot to kidnap the governor. It began, it seems like, earlier this summer, around June, with talks about actually storming the Michigan Capitol and attempting to create havoc there. But over the course of the next couple of months, it evolved, and the men began specifically to talk about, as you mentioned, the governor's vacation home in northern Michigan as an area where perhaps there would be less security and they might have a better chance of creating a distraction. They actually talked about putting an explosive device on a bridge near her vacation home to create a distraction and try and divert police that usually protect Whitmer, so they could potentially kidnap her and, as you mentioned, put her on some sort of trial.
I mean, Jonathan, what has been the reaction? I know this news is just developing, the details are just emerging, but based on what has been revealed, how have people there been reacting to this?
Well, I think it's a combination of shock at the specifics and the level of detail contained in the FBI affidavit that was released today, but also from the governor and some other folks, sort of an acknowledgement that maybe, they saw this coming. Not this specific thing, but we have seen in Michigan over the course of the summer a rise in public militia activity. I've covered a number of rallies and protests at the state capitol where militia members, Boogaloo Boys, Proud Boys, gathered openly and were essentially trying to take their movement mainstream. At the same time, these other militia members and activists were plotting behind the scenes to kidnap the governor. She today, as well as Vice President Joe Biden, both, urged the President Trump, to consider his words carefully. Whitmer suggested he's been fomenting anger and sort of, giving cover to extremist groups by not more clearly denouncing them.
All right, Jonathan Oosting in Michigan for us. Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you.